And hola Frank, ¿cómo estás? Estamos live. We are live with Frank Carbajal with this fantastic name. Um,
Thank you, Nakar. How are you? Good to see you on this Monday morning here in California, and I know it's 7:30 in the evening in Italia in Italy. So I've
yes.
been there. I visited there when my oldest was just a baby. I've been to Roma.
Oh, beautiful, 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 beautiful. I am actually on the northern part, up where there is Venezia and this beautiful, beautiful area with the
Great,
channels and this historical from merchant time. So,
awesome.
Frank, I want to let's start a little bit with you. Can you
Sure.
just introduce yourself to the audience, to everybody? What is it you do? What is it a little bit your background? Just what is your story, Frank?
Yeah. Hi. So thank you for having me as a guest and to the audience members. My name is Frank Carbajal. My birth name is Francisco Javier Carbajal, and my parents are immigrants from Mexico, to the United States. And when they arrived to the United States, it was during a bracero program, which was migrant farm workers, which today we're feeding the world. So it was a humble beginnings where my parents worked this hard labor. And at the time in the early 70s, I was born in 1969, but around 1973, my dad, who I called a survival networker, he did whatever he took to feed his family, was offered a job in Santa Clara Valley, now known as the Silicon Valley. The Silicon Valley in the early 70s had so many orchards. So there was jobs for a lot of migrant workers and especially folks from Mexico. So my parents were offered a job to work in canneries, literally canning food. And so they moved us into an area known as East San Jose. And East San Jose, I realized, Nakad, at that time, the injustices, the inequities of kids that were from my neighborhood integrated into public schools that were really schools that served the needs for kids that were really acclimated to that type of environment. And for Latino kids, it was more of a struggle. It was a push, and sure enough, the tenacity and resiliency that I saw in my parents, I pushed through to be a first generation graduate of college in my familia. That's it in a nutshell.
Wow, wow, that is incredible. And we're talking back in the day when your parent comes about. What years it was? In the 60s, the 70s, the 80s? When did they come?
Yeah. Sí, claro, claro. Mis padres llegaron a los Estados Unidos in 1967, and I was born in 1969. I am the youngest of five, so they ended up in the Bay Area in 1973 when I was just 4 years old.
Okay, so
From an area known as El Centro, which is near Mexicali, not far from the border of Mexico.
from near Mexicali. So we're talking also great historical moment. You say 1968, 69, or 79. There
Yes,
was all of this civil rights
69,
movement,
69.
69, all of this civil rights movement going on. You was
Yes.
born. Nowadays, we have seen the rhetorics with Trump, we have observed, but we can imagine back in the day what it was mean to be Mexican, what it was be to me immigrants. Just this push towards civil rights, it was just starting, it was just fresh. So I can imagine the level of intolerance, although this great historical moment that triggered some amazing change and maybe it was a good era to live in, but I can imagine it was much more harsh, much more hard. So you went through this, you grew up with this family value of immigrants, of sort of go get it. Tenemos que trabajar, we must go on, we must work one, two, three, whatever jobs, and we must push through. So you grew up in this family mentality where hard work was really valuable, and where maybe there was this focus on you. They say, Frank, you are the future, no? Tú eres el futuro. You are the future of our family. We want to see you to become something better than we ever dream. All of this sacrifice, all of these hours we spend working in El Campo, we are doing this for you. So you kind of have this weight, this responsibility on your shoulder, and you push through up until college. And what is it you do today, Frank? What after all of this crazy journey? What was all of the development during college with this? Because at the end, just now, I have known you for your work in technology. And so, how is it you pass from this to working in technology? What happened in between?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So I want to start off with the fact that, in the neighborhood that I grew up in, a lot of the positions that were um, seen as accessible for the Latino community were either in law enforcement, social services, or education. So my first degree in undergrad is in the field of social work. So it's working with people, and it's something that was near and dear to my heart because, as a kid, as a chavalito, unfortunately, we had a lot of law enforcement and social services not coming to my house, but neighborhood neighbors and the neighboring uh, trauma that would happen in the barrio, and so when I saw my career, I really asked myself, do I want to stay with social work after 15 years of it? And I decided to take a leap of faith in 2003. I started writing a book, and the book is published by a New York publisher known as Wiley and Sons. It was published in 2008, and it's a collection of stories of folks from humble beginnings to greatness in various industries, not only in technology, in business, nonprofit leadership, and education. So really in the book, it was my recipe to start a new life, a new chapter, literally, no pun intended, to become a social entrepreneur in 2008. And so the journey of becoming a
Frank,
social entrepreneur,
Frank,
yeah,
this was not only the book, because you was during that moment, from what I understand, you was going through a transformative moment in your life, where you was thinking, do I go
yes,
on for the rest of my life with this social working, or do I make a change?
yes,
So while you was
yes,
meditating this, it was something deep for you because something really big was going on as your life changing, and it was also a message from this story where you come from, because you have underlined the fact that you come from this barrio, from this sort of
yeah,
harsh reality where also your intercourse, the America that you experienced very all early on, was a different America from what the average American experienced. You experienced so many social
ex-
service. You experienced maybe your friends, the nearby next
yes,
door, having some situation with the law.
yes,
So your perception of this America, of this welcoming, was totally different from somebody regular, somebody who just I'm just born in America, regular American. And in that period, you also underline one thing, that in the school system, in all of this, it wasn't really built for you guys. It was built for some other people, and you could
yes.
feel this resistance. And also in your mind, the perspective that you had as a Latino, it was not some perspective like you can say I can do anything. The Latin, what the people you grow up around, you say the option was law enforcement or social service or what. There wasn't this chance that maybe your kids have.
Well, that's an excellent perspective on it because the heroes that I had aside from my parents were on television, so they weren't real. They were very much not tangible. I wasn't accessible to reach out to these actors or folks that were on TV, and the folks that were on TV were very few of color. There was a show by the name of Sanford and Son, a great show, and Chico and the Man, and very, as we see today, very few, as they call it, Latinx actors and actresses that we have access to. So I really felt that one thing is for sure, Nakar, is we are born as minorities in this country or in other parts of the world, whether it's in Europe or in Africa, and you're a person of color, you're born into nonprofit causes. And I no longer at 2008, I love nonprofit, but I didn't want to be a nonprofit thinker. I wanted to transform, as you said, the transformation into a business that was doing good, but also raising capital and raising money, because it's important that we create the mindset as folks of color to understand that we were born in a nonprofit. Do we really want to be a person of nonprofit for the rest of our lives? No. The answer is no. What we do need to transform and create a mindset is give back to nonprofits, but not be the nonprofit, if you know what I'm saying, because it really is it's an important factor, because if you think about it, many of these large nonprofit organizations, in terms of the case studies and in terms of the clientele, are folks of color, and which is great. But we need to change and flip the coin, like if it was a heads or tail, flip it to the coin of dominance and say, okay, we are going to take charge here with the capital and make the decisions.
Okay, so that was big transformative, a big transformative. I kind of get it. The picture you have in the mind as for non-profit and charity and all of this, there is always the picture of the man of color with some fly on the eye, and it's crying and
Yes, yes,
yes.
yes, yes. And it really is important to understand that it really became a maturation process of understanding for me that I grew up in an area that was disenfranchised from the dominant community in, say, for example, San Jose, where the areas of beautiful neighborhoods were always the ones that were being profiled as the saviors, and the folks that in my community were being perceived as the folks that were causing the trouble. And that transformation in terms of I need to write a book and create a positive narrative for a community really
And I can
became.
also imagine in the cinema, when you look at Hollywood cinema, you look at it from Italy, there is always this stereotype really that goes on TV of the Latino with some kind of bandana on top
Yes.
and some kind of dressing that it's ridiculous. It's not really. It has nothing to do with reality, but
Oh,
some kind of this vato, and then it mixes up with this imagination from the rap music. And then when maybe I think
yeah.
when you see some, you start to see yourself, but it's just some neurosis.
Hey, hey, the car. I have a perfect example of that in a professional setting. It was about a month ago. We're on this Zoom, town hall type of meeting, a setting where, you have your split screens and everything. And the president of the club, he, and I'm the only Latino on this club call. And the gentleman who is of Asian descent, he raises up a bandana, right? I didn't know what it was because I couldn't really see, but his question was, Frank, you know what this is, right? And I said, what? No, no, no. What? And I was looking, I said, no, what
Oh
is it?
my God.
He's like, come on,
Oh,
you know what it is.
oh my
And
God.
and I said, no, I can't tell. He's like, and it gets worse. He's like, it's a bandana. You know what a bandana is. And I said, oh, really? I said, well, oh, okay. Caught me off guard. I said, oh, so what do you use it for? He's like, and it gets worse. He's like, I use it for my dog. I was like, oh, so the correlation and the stereotype was not only a person, but correlating to using for his pet. And so I just really am aware of the fact that not only the perception and the reality for folks who are non-Latino or folks that aren't of color really perceive us como animales a veces, and just the bottom feeders. And in order to rise, we have to continue discussions like we're having today, and discussions that are also going into a room, a boardroom, and not being afraid to show your pride of culture, pride of you know language, and pride of who you are as far as a leader.
So I don't know about neighborhood in United States because here in Europe it's pretty integrated. There is a lot of sort of mixed neighborhood. There is not
Right.
a very well defined line between
Yeah.
rich, poor, black, white, all of this. So you have on one side you have some government housing, on the other side 10 meters, 50 meters, 300 meters ahead you have some villa, and you have the new coming. They live in the same area with some other. So there is not this margin, but my perception I have in United States that you enter in some area in the city, especially back in the day, and you would see all Latino, all blacks, or you would see all whites, and it was connected to class, to socio-economical
Yeah.
levels. Yes, you do have
Yes.
this in Europe. You do have this in Italy, especially in the southern part, where there is like people who is picking up fruit and vegetable. It's mostly first time immigrants from Africa. So there is this sort of distinction line. But in other areas, there is not this net class division. So that's why I can think that racism in America, it could have been back in the day. Now they are telling me it's getting better. I mean, in some suburban area, there isn't so much. You could see maybe more Hispanics, more whites, more black living in these areas. But my perception is that back in the day, you would see a real immediate correlation between race and wealth. And is that true? Is my perception like this true, or do I have it wrong?
No, no, you're right on it. I mean, one of the things that is interesting in terms of the larger cities. For example, New York has what they call the projects, housing projects that you had described that are integrated. But in New York City, for example, the boroughs of projects, for example, Harlem is comprised of blacks, and then you have Brooklyn, a mixture, and then the Bronx, and then of course in Los Angeles, in East LA, you have Latinos and Chicanos, and then in South Central and Compton, it's comprised of Black community, and then in East Oakland, Black, and a lot of cities, and where I grew up in East San Jose, Latino, happen to be on the east part of the city, but in Chicago, for example, I believe it's in the south part of the city. And I think what really defines, they call it either a railroad track or fencing that separates classes. And I think under Trump's watch, for example, what really he said viscerally were what people were really thinking in terms of race and racism was what was viscerally coming out of his mouth was something that a lot of people felt and still continue to feel, and it's really a sad reality that this will continue in terms of race in America. And as a Latino, it's really important for me to collaborate and have allies in the Black community because we are really struggling the similar fight. But at the same time, one thing that's for sure, Nakar, is in California, for example, there is 40% Latinos made up in this state. And not once in 170 years has there been a U.S. senator that happens to be Latino. So in terms of making laws and putting laws into place and helping and elevating our community, I believe the three important pillars that really could help define, uh,
But
equal
what I
pay.
see, it's also people who don't know each other, who, because maybe there is so
Yeah,
much distancing between the neighborhoods and community, you don't even know, the white person doesn't even know where you live in, or He said if you live nearby next door, you have a chance to form the relationship with somebody else. But when there was so much
Well,
division, it becomes so hard to know each other between communities. I don't know if.
see, that's the thing is the division is something that is real, but at the same time, the person who is on the other side living in the beautiful community understands where the division lies. In other words, they're not going to want to step foot into a community that they feel is dangerous. But I'll tell you, I lived in a community that people perceived was dangerous, and there was no danger for me because I was a person that really, if you're kind, I think kindness of heart leads greatness of character. Is a person that will always succeed. And for me, growing up in a community where it was a barrio, I was very fortunate because in terms of culminating to where I am today, I live in a community that I see had all the advantages of the world from the beginning of the founding part of this city of Santa Clara, and it's really a city of the heart of Silicon Valley. And Nakar, I'll tell you, 5 companies alone here in the city of Santa Clara where I live, uh, they're worth 5 of them worth over $500 billion. And and you bring up a good point in terms of division. I think it's important to build infrastructure and have some of these companies in East San Jose, for example. Why not put it in poorer communities to elevate that economy, elevate folks in the community, and really help one another out so that everyone could be on the same playing field.
Okay, so this is really your job. So your job is for the first time to start to connect capital, loop out of the pro bono charity, etc., and you start talking about Latino in the Silicon Valley, Latino leadership, Latino involved in tech. So how is the scene, the technological scene in the Silicon Valley as it comes to Latino CEOs, Latinos politicians, Latinos who's actually doing something, who's doing startups, and what is your role in this with your organization as Tiempo LLC and all of these other things you're doing? So what is really going on in this tech field and what are some
So
of the
yeah,
challenges you are facing? Where is it you see some obstacle and you have to go through? And where you see the opportunity also?
yeah, yeah. So I'm the founder of the Silicon Valley Latino Leadership Summit. It's a platform that helps individuals gain access to high tech leaders, technology leaders, whether they're CEOs or CIOs. And there's very few Latinos and Latinas in that space. And so one thing is important for me is to collaborate, for example, with an organization known as High Tech. It's a Hispanic Information Technology Executive Council that helps not only lift individuals into that particular pipeline, but I am the person that is like a catalyst, right? A catalyst to connect individuals that have talent and helping identify talent. And how I do that, Nakad, is once once we're into the future of all being in the same room, once again, hopefully, God willing, in the fall of next year, I have a leadership summit where I really identify some of the top level executives to present at my summit. And at the same time, I invite individuals. It's open to the public, and about 90% of Latinas and Latinos register for the summit, and they get to network and connect with these individuals. So that's helping build that pipeline.
Yeah, because that is the main problem. I was talking the other day with, in Italy, we have one problem. It's called io sanguis, blood. Citizenship in Italy has to do with the blood. A difference of America, when you're born in America, you are an American. What happens here, it has to do with blood. So you have a lot of people that their parents came here in Italy, but they are not recognized citizenship up until they are 18, 19, 20, and until they apply for it. Okay? Because it has to do with the blood. It has to do whether one of your parents, at least one of your parents,
Yeah.
is Italian. Okay? So what happens is they are culturally Italian, they are culturally educated here, they go up until high school, up until university, but they are not recognized, they don't have the same rights here, and they are always struggling with getting their visa, which makes no sense because they have no original bandage to their motherland, and sometimes they even forget the language. Okay, so there is one structure that they try to organize these people for two reasons: for political reasons and for economical reasons, start to get them in the startup technological situation. And one of the challenges is they face is for one young talent to have an idea about a startup and then connect with the capital. Okay, so this is one challenge, and they need this is one challenge, actually, connecting young people to people with money for to put them in the socio-economical financial tissues in Italy. So I see that with your plan you are doing some of this.
One of the things that is important is absolutely what you said. The fact of the blood. And I remember not too long ago, and I see him as a pioneer in Italia. Is that I played football for 25 years, and it's my passion. But Bolatelli, who was Ghana original, right, and adopted. Was he adopted at 2, I believe? And he had
Yes, I think
struggled.
yeah, he had a big struggle in the
He
soccer.
had a
Yes,
big
yes.
struggle, and there was so much racism that I remember he even cried. And I read it in an article in ESPN that they threw bananas at him, and on the soccer field. And the thing that he did is he showed the strength that he was going to push through and continue to play. And now in Italy, and you never seen it before, and in Belgium, you see folks that were born in Ghana but have that dual citizenship where they're playing in Belgium, France, and Italia, and it's never ever seen this in the 80s or in the 90s even, and up until just recently. And I think the person who really is the icon and the father of changing that was Zidane, one of the greatest players of all time. When he started playing in France with Henry, Thierry Henry, they really showed that it was about talent. It had nothing to do about skin color or about blood. And when they saw the talent on the field, the world embraced him. And I think you bring up a great point, because with blood, genetics, and everything else, we need to see past that and see the talent in the person. And so that's what I really, Nakar, always try to push for, is to show, especially here in the Silicon Valley, that there are a lot of companies that pledge money, but then after the the public relation has kind of fizzled a little bit, then it goes back to square one, where it goes back to the color of the skin. And it's not right. It's not right. It has to be a narrative that's a hashtag that I created, hashtag 365 Latino leader, 365 Latina leader. It has to be daily. It really does.
So that's really a powerful message, and actually talent and seeing through the talent, it's actually a message that lots of people from all cultures, white, black, pink, yellow, they resonate with. And we have seen this, including in the latest protest with the George Floyd, whether it was right or wrong, or there were some excesses or whatever happened. We have seen so many people who align with this, and so many people also in Europe, young people who are breaking through. And there has always been people who can see beyond the skin color, can see beyond the nonsense of genetic, and they can look at really a person for what that person can really give. And that is important, because at the end of the day, we are a human being. So this is really and we can see this, the progress. Just look at your life and the progress you have made, and actually the chances your kids have, and they and also that you did not have in your parents. So we are seeing this slowly moving forward. That being said, I have some few last questions. First of all, you are the authors of two books. Would you like to give us a little bit about these books, what contains in these two books? And then, as we get to the end of the podcast, I would like you to give me three advice on success and leadership.
Sure. So the first book is a book that was translated in Spanish, and they formed it to a second book. So the first book it's building the Latino future success stories for the next generation. It was published by Wiley and Sons, and it could be found on Amazon. With the book, it has 49 stories of successful leaders throughout the United States that came from humble beginnings and are from different parts of our world of Latin America, whether it's in South America, Mexico, or the United States. The common thread is all of them said, really, it took education to succeed. Education is the equalizer. Education helps lift our not only our spirits, but it really puts us on a even level playing field to succeed. So it really is a framework that it created a future, focus, unity, tenacity, unique ability,
Yeah, I'm gonna
resilience.
intervene on the education because it's not just about race, it's not just about color.
Yeah,
It's there is a bunch of layers. It is
yes,
socio-economical. It is a matter whether you have a degree or you don't have a degree. It is a matter
exactly.
whether you have connection or don't have a connection. It is a matter whether you are literate or you're not literate. It is a
That's
matter
right.
whether you are a reader, you can read, you can think, you have high cognitive ability or you don't. So it's not just the racial factor, it's a bunch of other. Yes.
Exactly, Nakar, and I'm glad you bring that up because my papa, my late dad, always said, an education is not always on paper; it's up here, and it really is. Folks who understand the differences of treating others with respect is a form of education. Wisdom is a form of education, and one person who I have as a dear friend who's a self-made millionaire, doesn't have any form of formal education. He says he has a PhD. And I said, oh, yeah, Art, what is it? He's like poor, hungry, and driven. And so education comes in all elements. And it was translated in Spanish. So the second is El Futuro Latino, which is published in 14 Latin American countries, including my parents' homeland of Mexico.
So with Frank Carbajal, Building Latino Future, Success Stories from the Next Generation. You can find this book on Amazon. And then we have El Futuro Latino, which is also translated in Spanish in so many languages all over Latin America. Some incredible inspirational stories from all over South America, people you can look up to, people that made something great, which maybe story you can resonate with, no matter where you're from or who you are. You can find the books from Frank Carbajal, I hope I pronounced right, on
Yes.
Amazon, and you can find Frank all over the social medias if you just Google his name. And Frank, please, three tips on leadership and success before we conclude. Leave us with
Leadership,
these three beautiful tips.
yes.
Yeah.
Be yourself, understand that everything is a process, and never give up. Those three elements of leadership will take you far.
Be yourself, understand that everything it's a process, and those three, two, three, whatever, they will take you far. And I add, keep going. This was the interview with Frank Carbajal. Gracias por estar aquí.
Gracias, Nakar. Gracias.